Hey, welcome to Con Carolina's Television. I am Brawner, and I have got this solo mission today. We're doing kind of like we did at the end of last season, where we did a author spotlight series, where we had Chuck Gannon on the show. We have an artist spotlight series we're going to feature today, and it's going to feature Ben Mirabelli, this
Hi.
this cat right here, and he's going to be doing kind of some live art for us, which just in the 5 minutes he sat down, it already looks amazing. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. And during the course of the show, we're going to give you the opportunity to look at some of his other work. We have a little slideshow that's going to go on so that if you guys want to reach out, we're going to post his website. Hey, Buttercup. We're going to post his website in the chat. Hey, cosplayer, what's going on? Um, and that'll allow you to go and order prints and do what you need to do because they make amazing gifts. Um, I have two myself, two, three. I'm not sure if the third one is his. Yeah, you did The Witcher, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That. So I've got three. Um, and they're amazing. And it's like when I met, we were at a Con Carolinas meeting um, last Sunday, and Karen goes, "First of all, Ben's very important to the con, so don't be a dick to him." And I said, "Okay." But then, like everyone like that heard that he was going to be on the show, that's even just part of the Concom, was very excited. So yeah. So without further ado, this is Ben, and we're going to jump into the interview. Ben, did you say hi or did you just nod and
I waved a little.
waved a little?
Yeah.
Gave a cursory
I
nod.
gave the little wave,
You give like one of these, like hello. But yeah, so if you guys have questions or anything that you need to know or want to know, Buttercup says hey. Cosplayer says hey.
Hello.
Hey, what's going on, Mom? How you doing? Welcome to the show. So, um, why don't you tell me a little bit how you got started in this?
Well, um, so you'll actually, I think, really appreciate this little story. The first drawing that I ever made was of Batman.
Yes, I knew he was smart, and I knew I liked him for a reason.
I had just seen Batman Returns. So I was a wee lad of but 12 years.
Right, I was 47.
He's just been 47 forever. And I wanted a drawing of Batman. And I had asked my dad to do it because he was the artist. He had made me a Spider-Man. And, I was like, can you make me one like Batman? And he was busy and didn't really get to it, I guess, in my, prepubescent time frame. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try it myself. So I took some Sharpies and some felt pens and just had at it. And I remember, I think that's like the first serious drawing I did. Most of the other drawings I've done up until that point were kind of related to school projects, I guess.
Hmm.
So like this was the first like, hey, I'm gonna do a thing. Yeah, that's kind of where I guess where it really started. But before that, my grandmother had us, doing oil paintings to Bob Ross and everything. Like I was like probably 7 or 8. So I'd say that like my whole life has really been steeped in the arts. Like sometimes it was always, it was always a craft project to do it at Grammy's house.
Gotcha.
That was kind of, that was, I guess, what really kind of started us on that path.
All right. So, like, what was the first? Do you remember your first drawing that you thought, "Hey, I'm good at this"?
Um,
Like an epiphany kind of point?
I mean, I guess it would be that Batman piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like it came out good. And it's kind of one of those things to where like I'd want to do more of this. And I really, I guess that. it kind of that's comics were ironically I don't really read comics as an adult. But like comics were really kind of informed my artistic growth as a child.
Right.
You know, I used to that's where, you know, that's why I don't like poo-poo on people who start out drawing like manga and stuff like that, because like as long as you deviate from that kind of initial style, how you get started doesn't really matter. But like I guess like my early stuff, I would just kind of pick a splash that I liked in a comic, and then I would kind of mess with it from there, and just really just copy it. So that's where I guess kind of discovered that I had a bit of a knack for it.
All right, so I'm going to go off script for a second because I just thought of a question.
Okay.
Like throughout, my interactions with artists over the years, there has been um, at least a handful of them that said, there's this that is my nemesis. I can't draw this,
Oh, right.
whether it's
Yeah.
hands
Hmm.
or faces or whatever. Is there
Yeah.
anything that is your Achilles heel?
No.
Awesome. I love that answer.
I mean, there's really put in enough time and effort, I could do anything I want to do. Because if I don't have the tools to draw what it is I want to draw, or make it what it is I want to make, I know the routes to get there.
Right.
Um,
So that would answer cosplayer's question.
which
can
was
can you draw Darth Revan or Miles Morales? So I'm sure he can draw anything. It was just why I kind of asked that question.
Yeah. I definitely do take commissions. Not in this particular event here. I'm
Right.
kind of working on this
No
piece.
speed drawings.
Yeah. But
Which camera?
this one,
Um, there you go. There you go.
is that better? Yeah, that's because I'm
It's
working.
'cause he's drawing.
I'm working here. Oh, yeah. Well,
Yeah, we do. All right. So did you go under any specific training? Did you go to
oh,
school?
yeah, I have a bachelor in fine arts from
Bachelor in
yeah,
fine
from
arts.
UNCC.
Oh, nice.
Majored in illustration. So that's kind of where I got. Illustration was an interesting kind of thing for me because you know, you would think it's just, oh, this is just, you know, how you make illustrations, and that is true, but because of the way the field operates, you actually get a wide and deep exposure to different mediums, from watercolor to paint to, you know, drawing to ink. You pretty much do everything in the illustration program, or at least you did when I was there. So it's definitely one of those, you know, I liked it as a major, even if, you know, I'm not exactly what you would call a career illustrator. I definitely, it's definitely facilitated my kind of growth into an art teacher, because I know how to use almost everything, at least at its, you know, most fundamental level.
That's that's pretty amazing because I mean I remember drawing when I was in school, and I would draw the same thing over and over again, which was a horse, and all four legs were on
On the
the
one
same
side,
side.
yeah, yeah, there you
So,
go.
and I never learned anything other than that. So, yeah, I don't have that ability. I mean, I can play, music, but I can't draw worth a hooey. All right. So, you have a lot of, fantasy art and stuff on your website. And do you have a preferred like subject matter that you like to draw?
Uh, Given my druthers, I love fantasy art. And I love what I guess what you would call like traditional fantasy art, where it's, you know, like high fantasy, Lord of the Rings, that sort of stuff.
Hmm.
As luck would have it, I very rarely get to am hired to work in that genre. But when I do, it is glorious, because it's kind of where my interest lies. So it's kind of one of those things to where it's like I always prefer to work in something that I'm interested in, and that's kind of I've recently kind of come to a bit of an epiphany in my own career, through talking to a few artist friends of mine, you know, that I don't have to take jobs that I don't want to do, because I have a full-time job. So it's
Yeah.
like, you know, I have the luxury that many career artists don't have, in that I can say no if I don't want to do something. And I have started doing that, because I just don't. My time is very precious to me, and what I spend my energy on needs to be something I'm interested in. So it's like if I don't feel like it is going to either elevate me or my brand, I don't do it anymore.
I feel you on that. I think that also the no rules. I mean, as far as like you can go from point A to point B or point Z, and break every rule other than technical rules that you use in your application. But as far as what you draw, I mean, the sky's the limit, really.
Oh, with fantasy art,
Yeah.
it's interesting though because with fantasy art, there is a particular focus on getting the things that are real correct. So anatomy is really important.
For
Having a
sure.
really good command of light and shadow is really important because essentially you're trying to convince someone that something that can't exist exists. And so that's why I mean, for a long time, realism dominated the fantasy industry. Now it's gotten a lot more loose to where people are doing a little bit more interesting things stylistically with it, to where they're not so hampered by realism.
Right.
The Boris Vallejos are kind of the way of the past.
Frank
um,
Frazetta or
yeah,
Frazetta
yeah,
or
yeah.
yeah.
That's sort of like hyper realism, hyper detail. Though Frank Frazetta to me was a little bit more stylized. It was kind of like ahead of his time a little bit with that. But like I just think of like the hyper realism of like a Larry Elmore and stuff like
Huh.
that. Like um, those folks, they're not really the direction that stylistically current D&D art and current fantasy art is really kind of taken. It's Wayne Reynolds kind of rules the airwaves, as far as that sort of this sharp painterly style that is not
Hmm.
even really going for realism. But the volume is there, the lighting is there, the detail is there. It's just done in a way that's very stylistic as opposed to just I'm trying to make a photograph.
Right. It's kind of like I mean, I'll associate it since I'm Mister tattooed everywhere. Um, you go from very traditional art tattoo, early on to like a new school, like where people actually take liberties and play with,
Mhm.
abstract images and just create some fun out of it, and not let it be so rules based. But like you say, you have to get all of those other things in line before you
Mhm.
can kind of,
Absolutely.
spread your wings a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely one of those something looks off. It is in a piece of fantasy art, it is really obvious. Just because you're already trying to convince the viewer that something that is impossible is in fact possible. There aren't dragons, there aren't elves.
Right. So it's subjective too. So I mean, you can take some liberties as well. So
Yeah.
what are you working on right now as we're watching you?
This is the t-shirt t-shirt and badge art design for Con Carolina's 2023. So here's the full image mock-up. I haven't quite decided where I'm going to put the logo as to whether it's going to go across the top or kind of more located towards the bottom of the image.
Hmm.
And I'm not sure if I'm going to put any kind of grounding on CC, like any ground clutter. I'm still kind of going back and forth with that stuff, but that's what typically happens. That's the really great thing about digital art is it is fertile ground for experimentation.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if anyone in the chat has seen,
Excuse me.
but he did last year's T-shirt, which was just amazing. It had the green black splash on it, and I didn't, for whatever reason, think to get a picture of it. But I'm sure if you were at the con, you saw plenty of them in the sea of people that we had. But yeah, that's Cece right there, and I mean, I like the actual drawing better than the picture. So good on you on that one.
Thanks. Yeah, I try to strive for I guess what I call like painterly realism, where it's still obvious that it's not a photograph. And I
Right.
mean, you're looking at it, and it's like, yeah, it's obvious that this is a piece of art. Um, but it's definitely not. I don't really go for like super hyper realism. I guess my portraits are probably the most realistic things that I do. just because you've got a whole other element there, which is
Right.
essentially like tackling the likeness and being able to do that. So that's that you kind of can't get it. It's hard for me. And that's one thing that like every time when I was a younger man, people would try to recruit me to do like caricatures at their event. Like, oh, can you come do caricatures? And I'm like, nope,
Nope.
super can't. Like, well, will you do these portraits? I'm like, oh, well, yeah, well, that's realism, man. Like,
Yeah, that's a
it's
portrait.
not like it is a whole other skill set, dude. But I mean, really, and this is not to crap on non-artists in any way. They're my supporters, but they don't really typically know what goes into making art or what processes look like. And so like the idea that like I could draw a realistic portrait, but doing a caricature is really elusive to me is like, you know, mystifying to them.
Right.
So
I mean, your brain's just not wired that way.
yeah, well, and it is. It's a specific skill set, and if I had fostered that skill set, I have no doubt that I could do it.
For sure.
And under duress, I could do one, but it would be a painful, horrible experience, and I would hate every moment of it.
Right.
So it's kind of one of those things to where like yes, there are. When I say I can do anything, I can, but it's just a matter of how much am I willing to.
Right. Thumb screws can I make you
Yeah,
do a
well, you
caricature?
do the old what is it the shin breaker? Yeah,
Right.
that was the one that always got me. I don't know if they're real though. They talk about a lot of those torture devices are essentially inventions of the Victorian mind. They weren't actually things that they used, but I'm sure there were plenty that they used in real life. So, but yeah, some things definitely would be torturous process wise for me.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, so you're working right now on a I don't even know what they're called, sketch pad or
This is a tethered screen tablet. So it is basically it functions as a secondary display, and it is got over 1,500 points of pressure on it. So if I make a faint line, really anything there, bold line, so it's the great thing about this one too is the undo button.
Mhm.
But the great thing about this one too is the fact that it has a double laminated screen, so it actually has some responsiveness to it. Do you want to make a mark?
No.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah, dude.
I can't even write my name.
I got a button, man. I
You
can
can
undo
undo
it.
it?
No
Okay,
big
let me
deal.
do
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Let me do
Just
it.
just
I'm
go
gonna
to
do this. Excuse me.
and make a faint mark. Pretty cool,
Ooh,
huh?
that was a high.
But you felt the responsiveness of the screen. The screen actually like gives a little bit,
For sure.
and it's actually a magnetized pen, so the pen's not powered, which is another nice feature of this particular tablet. This is a Huion tablet. I did have an XP pen, but they're more of a budget brand for people that are just kind of starting out.
Hmm.
And I hadn't really truly gotten into digital art until like the pandemic, really.
Oh, wow.
So and it's one of those things to where like when you work traditionally, publishers don't generally want to look at you because you know if I were working on this for a publisher and somebody were like, okay, can you can you go back and make the cat's fur blue instead of you know black?
Hmm.
And I'd be like, well, that's going to be a complete teardown. So you're going to pay me for a second painting,
Right.
that kind of thing. Whereas this, it allows the commissioner a little bit more level of control and saves my sanity a bit. Um, but nothing that I do digitally, I couldn't do traditionally. It just is a matter of time, energy, and adaptability.
All right. So that brings me to the next question is
Mhm.
what is, your favorite medium? I mean, do you like pencil? Do you like doing it on your tablet? Do you like, I mean, what is your favorite?
Um, well, as we gathered from earlier, I really don't do anything that I don't like. So it's just kind
You
of
got to have a fave.
yeah. I mean, it's almost like phases of my life and my career. Like
I like that answer.
for a long time, I swore by, I mean, you've seen my sepia tone portraits. You have
Mhm.
this, some of them, and that's all I worked at. Ballpoint pen on sepia tone, some color pops. That's all I did. And quite frankly, I mean, it was cool, but it's just started to get a little bored, you
Huh.
know.
So you needed to challenge yourself a
So
little
I
more.
needed to kind of expand, and I really wanted to get more illustration work, and because of that, that kind of necessitated a little bit more of a delve into digital. But because of the program that I use and the method that I use, it's really not that much different than my traditional work. I can actually even produce a piece that looks like it's been done in ballpoint pen on this program if I wanted to. But if I'm going to do that, I just do a traditional piece.
Yeah, I might as well do it
Yeah,
for real.
yeah, yeah. I mean, this is real.
Yeah. I
It's
mean, I
just
didn't
not.
mean
It's
to. I
yeah, no,
didn't
no,
mean
no. That's
to.
but that's the thing. Yeah, that's a lot of people phrase it that way when
Right.
they don't really think about it.
Yeah,
But if I couldn't draw or paint, I still wouldn't be able to draw or paint.
for sure.
Yeah.
You
So
saw my high.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, there are a lot of people within the art community that are very much like digital art is not real art. When I beg to differ.
Mhm.
But
I wholly beg to differ.
yeah, I mean, ultimately, all the pen stabilizers and filters in the world are not going to fix your lousy brushstroke.
Right.
You
It's
know?
a matter of touch.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
an amazing, musician playing a sweet solo that just resonates. It's the same thing with a brushstroke. It can resonate. Sorry, we have a emergency vehicle driving by.
The only
That was
issue
fun.
that I have with this process is really uh, it doesn't produce an original.
Uh,
But that can be both a blessing and like it can be a blessing as well because I don't have a bunch of stuff laying around my house. You know, like I did this illustration project for Empire Games back a couple of years ago, and I worked traditionally on that piece. It was a card game, and it was essentially I have all these originals just hanging around the house, not really doing anything. So I just ended up giving them to the company because I was like, you want to like give these away for prizes or something? Because I got nothing. I got what am I gonna do with this picture? And I mean
right.
that essentially was a for hire piece, so it's not like I can like make money off it on the back end because no one knows what the heck it is, you know. So it's like I don't know.
Right. Hey, cosplayer, if you look on his website, benmirabelli.com, you can see his Star Wars stuff, which is really, really good. And then I don't know what you mean by mashups.
I do. I can feel
What does
that
that
if you're
mean?
like it's basically combining two properties. Like for example, let's say you do the Death Star, but you paint it up like a Pokeball.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Um, I have only really done a few mashups in my day. I did a Wonder Woman, but I did her in like as if she were in the Mass Effect universe. If you've ever heard of the Mass Effect game, so she's got like an Omni tool and she's pulling her lasso of truth out of the Omni tool. But I generally stay away
Hmm.
from them because it's just kind of I find, especially like if I'm producing like pop culture work, I find that people's needs and desires are entirely too specific to chase a dragon that specific. You know what I mean? Like, in other words, if I did a Death Star and a Pokeball, okay, I could get Star Wars fans, I can get Pokemon fans, but only if they're like both.
Right.
You know, so that's
So a
essentially
commit that would be like a commission kind
it's
of thing
yeah,
going on.
absolutely, absolutely. So like it, I have done most of those mashups I have done have definitely been commissioned pieces.
Yeah,
So
because I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, my my brain just went, I need that when you said Death Star and Pokeball because
yeah.
I'm huge fan of both. So
Well, it's interesting because like I really, unless something really, really touches me, I don't generally even do pop culture art anymore
hmm,
because I'm too busy with other stuff. Like right now, the thing that's really jumping in my boo boo is like digital sculpting. So like if I'm at my druthers, if like I'm just making a piece for me,
mhm.
that's generally what I'm doing. So it's kind of one of those things to where like yeah, I guess yeah. Like I did my last pop culture piece I did was that Eddie Munson piece, and that's because I really loved his character. That was such a great,
Amazing character.
yeah, it's a great arc. It spoke to me on multiple levels because
It
I'm a
was
big
me.
D&D person, and so that it's kind of one of those things that like really resonated with me. So I was like, I need to do an Eddie piece, and
Yeah, go check out Eddie on his website. It's awesome.
I think it's in the traditional art and the genre pieces section. Yeah, because like there's a lot of different like Doctor Who and Star Wars. I make enough Star Wars art that justifies its own section on my website. But yeah,
What does that say? The TARDIS is a Lord of the Rings reference. I don't know what you mean by that, cosplayer. All right, so that kind of leads me into a very thing. Okay, so there was a Facebook post that I read that was Ben's, and it was talking about when the first AI explosion happened, and it was very passionate, and it was very. I mean, I could feel like I don't know the emotion behind it. So I used to use them in our ads. I used to go, "Oh, that's a cool way to just kind of make ads pop and have fun with them and whatnot." Um, but what is your take on the AI? I mean, it's a huge controversy. I've watched several podcasts on it, and it's just a big thing going on right now with the
Mhm,
artist versus the AI technology and
mhm,
apps.
mhm.
What's your take?
Ooh.
Yeah, strap in, boys and girls.
Yeah, that's a loaded question. I haven't been even calling it AI art these days. I call it bot collage.
All right.
I mean, because that's essentially how they function. Yes, they use existing artists to train them, and yes, they're doing their own brushstrokes that are based on the artist's brushstrokes. But I mean, there's definitely there's an aspect of the process that is very scummy, and you're essentially taking advantage of a community that's already pretty crapped on by industries, and basically telling them that their work is worth nothing more than a flashy kind of moment, and they're not going to be compensated for it or even asked permission.
Yeah.
And that's really my issue with it, and this kind of thing has been happening to the music industry for years now, but they have an industry to protect them, especially big name artists and stuff like that. And because of that, they can kind of get laws passed and get things, to put in place to protect musicians from this kind of theft.
Right.
And we don't have that. So it's like the old, the lone wolf gets picked off. And that's kind of how it's happening right now. There's actually a GoFundMe uh, running right now to basically pay lobbyists to essentially go lobby Congress to figure out some way to regulate this type of thing. Because
I kind of, I mean, you said it earlier. I mean, it kind of reminds me of the whole Napster versus musician thing, and how, the musicians eventually got the ability to take their money and their stuff back, although they're fighting with, Spotify and all the other mediums and
well, and you've
whatnot.
got you've got AI music generators too. So that's another big thing. But the big difference there is that they have record labels. They have a community to protect the larger names, and by proxy, the smaller names get
Right.
protected by the same laws that are put on the books. But um, yeah, I mean, like I just think right now, I mean, first of all, like people that have the audacity to write a prompt and call themselves an artist. I mean, this is maybe an unpopular opinion because I know people who are you to define what art is and what art isn't.
Right.
Um, but I'll tell you this much: if you can't use your art making tool when the power goes out, you know, what are you doing?
Right.
And I feel that way about people that lean very heavily on pen stabilizers and things like that. Like if you had to, could you do it analog? And there's all these kind of bad arguments that kind of crop up about AI. Oh, it's just another tool. Oh, it's just another tool. But once again, you look at most. I mean, think about power tools. You know, most power tools have an analog equivalent,
For sure.
um, and AI art simply does not. It cannot do it, and it cannot do it without the hard work of actual artists. And for that, I don't even argue with people that are AI art apologists, to be honest, because it's fruitless, because their arguments are rife with logical fallacies and just poorly framed arguments and poorly framed comparisons and all sorts of things like that. So, you can't really fight progress, but at the same time, uh, we shouldn't be blasé towards ad hoc theft from a community that's already disenfranchised enough.
There you go. There you have it. That's a very strong opinion, and you can't help but to, they call them starving artists for a reason. It's already hard enough for them to make a name for themselves, to get known, to make a living. You said you have a full-time job.
Yeah.
It's hard enough for that to happen without someone just sabotaging it from the outside, or um, it's a shame.
I guess, a lot of people say that automation is coming for all of us, coming for all of our jobs, coming for all of our yada yada, everything. Every
Has been.
automation is coming for us, right? Uh, I guess I never expected us to surrender up our creativity too,
Mm,
and that's the thing that really gets me is I always assumed that automation would make it so people could explore their creativity. Finally,
right.
finally have the time to like learn how to
An
and
instrument,
and play
or
an
right.
instrument, and they were finally knowing what it was like to live outside of the rat race for once. And I guess I kind of, maybe it's a utopian idea, but I kind of thought of the post work world as being something like that.
Yeah.
Where people get to explore their creativity, whatever that creativity might be. So the idea that we would be surrendering that up to the robots as well is nauseating.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's switch gears. Let's get off the let's get off that topic.
Sorry, it's been on my mind
No,
a bit.
yeah, right. I mean, I would have done you an injustice by not bringing it up. I think it's definitely something that people need to know and understand, or just get better informed about, and the impact it has. Um, but let's just say hi to Bates. Hey, Bates, long time, missed you. And there's a question in there that was saying, what was your best and most, like, a commission piece that was like your most expensive piece?
My most expensive piece, like the most that I ever charged for a commission.
Yeah, yeah. Or someone offered for something, or
Well, I tend to sell myself pretty cheap, and that's kind of a thing that I'm sort of working on. I Probably the best money I ever made was working on that card game,
yeah, I can
because
imagine.
that was like 38 illustrations. So that was, by the end of it, was a pretty good paycheck. As far as most expensive, I mean, I'm not going, definitely not to discuss numbers, but um, yeah, I tried. That was probably the most kind of lucrative thing that I did, as far as like working for one client, and being able to kind of I had a good amount of creative freedom too, which was really nice. I don't always get that. Sometimes clients' needs are very, very, very specific.
Right.
And I find this is not just my experience. This is other artists that I'm involved with. I find the more a client is willing to pay, the less picky they are.
About that.
And so if someone is trying to lowball me on something, that's usually a pretty big red flag that they're going to be a pain to work with. And that I find that to be true way more often than not.
And what was the name of the card game they were asking in the chat?
Oh, Alchemy 101. It's
Alchemy
yeah, it's
101.
available on drive through cards. So you could actually get yourself a copy. A couple
So
of
it's still in print and
oh yeah,
still
yeah. Friends of the
nice.
Con are actually producers of the game. So yeah, they're produced by Empire Games. They also have their flagship product is called I Drank What. Some of you may have heard of it. But those guys are the ones that hired me to do the Alchemy 101 card game, which is essentially like if Harry Potter went to community college. It's got that vibe. You're in a potions making class, and someone has knocked over a potion of forgetfulness, and so you're trying to identify all these potions very quickly before you get the frog potion, which takes you out of the game. Um, it's, And there's all sorts of
Pretty cool.
kind of messing with cards that you can do because you've got your potion stack and you've got your play hand, and you can actually cause the whole table to rotate where you have to pass your hand to the right and then you get the person next to you. It's quite an entertaining game. Plays
Cool.
quick too, which is nice. It's maybe a 25-minute game.
Like that.
Yeah.
I'll have to get a copy. All right. So what we have here is a question from Dorian, and he wants to know: is there any subject matter that you won't draw?
Not safe for work.
Not safe for work. No, not safe for work stuff here.
Yeah, I don't do it. I don't find it enjoyable. Really, it really just comes down to, usually I will do work that is either fun for me or, like I said, kind of elevates my brand. So if I don't want to post it on my website, I'm not going to make it. And that's just what it comes down to. I have a 5.5-year-old. My time with my family is very precious to me.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of am in a situation where I have to really be kind of choosy about the projects that I take. So any old thing just will not kind of do it anymore. Um, so yeah, the older I get, the more I have to make choices like that. So generally, I do stay away from the not safe for work stuff.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Especially like because you are involved with Con Carolinas, and we happen to be family friendly, hugely family friendly. Where I mean, it's subjective when you get to like Con After Dark and the BSBN people, which I'm part of, by the way. Um, but in any case, how did you get involved with Con Carolinas?
Well, I this is probably 12 years ago at this point. I did this convention, a local convention gaming con called Mace.
Yes.
I had heard about Mace from a friend of mine, and I was like, you know, I think the only other convention I had looked at before that was Heroes Con.
Hmm.
And Heroes Con is big and the tables are expensive. And at that time, I was really only doing like regular kind of what I would call straight art shows, non-convention, non-nerd events, basically. Just kind of like, uh, local art shows and that sort of thing,
Right.
like local events. You might see the Table Walk and stuff like that. So I was doing that sort of stuff. And so I was always a little bit kind of fearful of conventions because I was like, oh, well, it's a big investment of money. I don't know if I'm going to make a great return. I didn't have a lot of fandom pieces. I think the only fandom pieces I had were like my original 2 Star Wars pieces. And so I was kind of really quite leery about it. And I remember reaching out to Jeff, rest his soul, um,
Yes.
about Mace, and he was like, "Yeah, man, we'd love to have you. We got a spot in dealer's room." And I was like, "Well, how much is the table?" And he's like, "Oh, it doesn't cost anything." And I was like, "Oh," and he's like, "Yeah, no, we like people to be able to make money at our events, so yeah, we view the dealers as just one other attraction, so we don't charge anything for airspace." And I was like, "Okay," and so I went to Mace, and I was doing pretty okay. Um, and a fellow by the name of Dawson Kriska
Oh yeah.
approached me and was like, "Hey, I see you've got some Game of Thrones art. George R. R. Martin is going to be at Con Carolinas this year. You should consider, coming and vending." And I looked at the table price, and now looking at it, it's not an expensive table price.
No.
But uh, at the time, I was like, "Ooh, that's kind of a big risk." And my wife was like, "George R. R. Martin is going to be there. You're doing this con." And I was like, okay. And it was great for me. I sold out of my Game of Thrones stuff by 10 a.m. on Saturday.
Wow.
And because up until then, hey, 10 prints, 10 copies of something was more than enough. And that was actually the convention I sold my first original at. So uh, it's kind of all been, history since then, really. So I've done Con Carolinas every year since that show.
Well, I know in going through, stalking you, that you have a lot of pictures of, setups that you've had with festivals or different conventions and whatnot. Is that the best way for you to get your prints in front of people?
Oh, at a convention?
Yeah, or a festival or anything like that.
Honestly, it really just depends on like I have the website that I go through, Squarespace, has a really great storefront, and the prints come directly from me. Yeah, honestly, visiting my website and ordering things there is probably the easiest way to do it. Because that way you don't have to wait for a con to get that stuff if you need it for something. But yeah, probably the cheapest way to get my work is definitely at a convention because you don't have to pay for shipping, but then you're paying for the con. So, you know, obviously if it's a con you're already going to be at, then that makes the most sense. But yeah, yeah, I like to I like to meet my customers, and I like to talk to people and kind of nerd out over whatever because I don't really produce pop culture work like cynically. I mean, that's why you don't see any like Walking Dead art in my
Right.
stuff. I don't watch Walking Dead. I don't consume it. So I don't produce work that is not something I'm interested in.
Right. So you don't just go, oh, this is popular, so I'm gonna do this,
Yeah.
and
I mean,
just try to
sometimes
capitalize.
it like dovetails really well. Like the Munson piece, for example. That piece was wildly popular, but now it's cooled off
Right.
because Stranger Things is what, 6 months ago at this point.
Right.
So it's like I really kind of sometimes I do try to strike when the iron's hot, but I never ever produce pop culture pieces that I don't like myself. That's just not it's not my personality. Like it's just it comes across in the work too. It's just not as good. Like before the Andy Munson piece, probably the Witcher piece is probably one of my favorite pieces that
Yeah,
I've ever
mine
made.
too. I bought it.
I appreciate you. And I still have the original. But the it was because I really loved that show. I
Right.
thought it was great. Like it straddled the line between horror and fantasy like nothing I'd ever seen before.
Right.
And the closest thing I had seen that straddled that line was like I guess like Conan, because that kind of had some horror elements to it, but
Hmm.
usually it just goes too far one way or too far the other, and it's just and that is deeply and oh this is deeply fantasy, oh this is
Right.
deeply horror, you know. But Witcher, man, it is like right
Best of both
bang
worlds.
on right there on the spot. So
Too
that's
bad.
yeah, yeah.
Well, we don't know. I mean, Liam could do a great job. let's
Hey, but
let's
Cavill's
pray.
doing Warhammer though.
Right, 40K. Let's go.
War hamster.
I love that. And
Yeah.
it's a lifelong dream of his too. So we should
Yeah.
all pursue our lifelong dreams, I think.
I hope that they give him the creative freedom that I think they should.
Well, he's
He's the
the
showrunner, is he not?
showrunner.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, even the showrunner has to bow
sure,
to the corporate sponsors.
sure.
So I hope that he gets what he needs from
Probably
that.
based on his success, he's probably going to have a pretty good run at it. So,
You would think he would have had more sway over The Witcher, but here we are.
all right. So, going along the lines with like the most expensive thing you've ever sold or whatever, what is the most memorable response you've had from someone that has seen your work?
Um. Hmm.
Because I know some fangirls of yours. So.
I mean, really, like, so I don't know. I'm gonna stand up because
Okay.
this is a full body
Okay.
thing here, right?
He's gonna do the Wednesday dance.
Okay, so let's just bring this up a little bit. Okay, so
First time ever on CCTV.
this is a long time ago. I was probably 24 at the time, and I gave a kid a painting that I'd had hanging in a cafe for forever. It was like a silver dragon, in the moon and stuff. And his mom was a pretty loyal customer of the cafe that I worked at, and I gave it to him on my like last day there working there before I was going to become a teacher. And so I'm just like, here, this piece. And this was his response. So
there goes Batman.
Oh no, Batman!
Did he die? Did he break? No, he's
No,
good.
he's good.
Safe.
Good. He's safe. So that's probably been my most memorable
I love that though.
response from it wasn't even really a client because he wasn't paying, but yeah, that was his his response, which was just fantastic. So yeah, that's if I just peg it, yeah, that would be the one. That would be the one.
That would be my favorite too, man. Kids just have a way of just
they're they don't stop to think, hey, is this cool? Does this look cool? They don't do that.
Right.
That's why that laughter of children is so there. It's hard to tell.
That's
All right.
hard to tell. That's our producer, Sean, by the way, people. It's not a ghost, it's Sean.
Oh no, it's a ghost.
He probably is. All right. So is there okay, and now I don't think hate's a proper word, but is there any artist out there that you just like go, ugh, I just
Um.
don't like
Well.
that, or makes you go, ugh.
Oh, there are quite a few. I don't really. I'm not naming names here.
Okay.
But
How about
um,
like mediums
there have
or
definitely there have been quite a few. I'm in a couple of fantasy art groups on Facebook, and there is definitely like there is actually somebody that I blocked, not because they did anything mean or I just didn't want to see their work anymore. Because it was just, I mean, it was so. I think a lot of people with art making tend to put the cart before the horse, and they want to do things that they're not really technically skilled enough to tackle. And that's kind of a tough one because I know I want everybody to be able to do what they want to do,
yeah.
but maybe before you dive into smut, get your anatomy on point, because it's just a certain amount of duration, a certain amount that just looks like a monster. Like it looks monstrous and terrifying.
Right.
And so like just maybe don't dive in straight for that. Maybe work on your fundamentals a bit. And that's really ultimately that's the art that I don't like seeing is the art that I feel like okay they've definitely have like skipped some steps here in this process,
Right.
and it shows, man.
They got the Cliff Notes version.
Yeah, they're really. I mean, there. I would say there are shortcuts in art, but most of us who are in the industry can smell them coming across the street. And it's kind of you're you're ultimately cheating yourself, and you're going to cheat any potential clients you might have
Hmm.
because they're going to have a request for you, and you're going to struggle. Because you don't want to you know, you don't want to be able to not produce something unless it's comes out of left field, and that your client's like, oh, well, how about this? And you're like, oh, well, that's not really my wheelhouse.
Right.
You know, can you draw my dog?
Can you
Answer is
draw
I
my
can, but
fish?
I'm not going
Right.
to.
All right. So let's get to the fun questions now that we've exhausted all of
Serious,
the serious
hard hitting,
questions.
the hard ball.
Yeah. Given your penchant for fantasy, right?
Mm.
What superpower would you want?
Unlimited instantaneous teleportation,
Unlimited instantaneous
and
teleportation.
I'd want to be able to take people with me.
Where would we go right now?
We let's see, what time of year is it?
That's December.
We would go somewhere on the Mediterranean.
Mediterranean. Like
Yeah.
Greece?
Yeah, I've never been there, so yeah, why
Yeah,
not?
Greece is good.
Piff, let's go to the
We're gonna
Parthenon.
go to
Burp,
Greece.
yeah,
Peace out.
bye. Yeah.
All right. Um, what's the most bizarre request for a commission? Whether you did it or refused it, what was the?
I will show you.
All right.
Let's see. I think I've got my whole screen. Have I got my whole screen shared? Oh, it's only a tab. Boo. Hmm. Can I?
Can I
How?
really?
How? Okay, so if I stop sharing and then I reshare, let's do my entire screen just to make it easy. All right, so this is probably the single strangest commission I've ever done, and I love it.
Just while he's pulling that up, you know what work I really admire of yours is um, the artists, the musicians that have passed away.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, Sonorous Saints is
Yeah, Beautiful.
I enjoy that. I enjoyed those projects, and you know, those are probably the ones I'm most likely to kind of keep producing.
Yeah.
Um, so have you got this screen shared?
Yeah. What the
So
heck
I
is
call him
this?
affectionately the war camel.
The War
The war
Camel.
camel, yeah. Um, but he's a type of role playing character for a game that's like Dungeons and Dragons, but it's a different setting and a different rule set and everything. But that's called a game called Exalted. White Wolf Studios put it out forever ago. But he is a lunar exalted, so when he goes into his animal form or his hybrid form, that's what he looks like. And let me tell you, um, after looking at um, after looking at uh, images of the insides of camels' mouths. Yeah, they're terrifying. They have fangs, man. Like camels have fangs.
Crazy, right?
Why do they need fangs? Is what
Right?
I want to know. What are
Are they
camels eating that they
carnivorous?
need giant, like they look like a cross between a fang and a tusk. It is insane. So yeah, that's probably the weirdest one I've done to
Crazy,
date.
crazy, crazy. What
I'm
does
sure
that
there will
say?
be
Is your
weirder things.
horror strong point? Is horror your strong point?
No, not
No,
at all.
no,
Nope.
no.
Nope, not even a little bit. Not even a little bit. Um,
Yeah, I don't see any in his.
yeah, I mean, I've done a few book covers, like a few horror book covers, but definitely not my. I would not call it my strong suit. Um,
All right. Next question would be, what makes Ben happy? The human, not the artist.
oh, time, time, time to do things like time on my own, time with family, time.
Period.
Yeah,
Time.
period.
And what is your dream project?
I mean, part of me would say it would be really cool working for Dungeons and Dragons, but part of me is also kind of hesitant about that because I don't know how fun it would be working under that. I feel like it would probably be a pretty high pressure job.
Yeah, it's
Um,
wizards.
and I don't know. So I guess if you were like, if I found an indie publisher that was doing fantasy stuff, you know what I mean? That like they were making a piece, they were making a product that was going to be like a little bit niche and be uh, okay, like Savage Worlds. They're another game system. Like
Hmm.
if they were doing a fantasy companion and they liked my art and they wanted to put in the fantasy companion, that would be a dope project because I know those guys. They're super cool. They're super chill. So I think I would much rather work for a smaller company
Yeah,
than be doing that with the Wizards grind because
yeah.
I feel like it,
They're just a cash machine. I mean, there's
yeah, I don't know like how fun that would be. Now that being said, if they called me up tomorrow, I would of course give it a go.
right.
But
I'd negotiate.
yeah, but I don't know how enjoyable that would be. Like same thing as like working for like Blizzard or working for that kind of thing. Like it's kind of a, I guess not really a, like it's a dream that a lot of artists have, but I think a lot of them get in there and like I worked for this one art director at White Wolf Game Studios and I she was telling me about how she doesn't really play tabletop RPGs anymore, and I was like, "Well, really?"
That's sad.
And she was like, "Yeah, when you work at the ice cream store, ice cream's not as good anymore." And I'm like,
It's
"Oh, that
true.
really is terrible." Like, because there's got to be a way to both be passionate about something and pursue something and enjoy something
And not get sick
and
of it.
not hate it, like not
Right.
turn it into something you hate. That would be my worst nightmare. Like finding a job and being like, "Oh yes, I finally get to paint dragons. I've waited my whole life to paint dragons," and it sucks.
Right.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
hey, you know what time it is? It's whisker time.
Whisker time. We got to do whiskers really fast because we are out of time.
Oh,
But there was a question in the chat, and I'm sorry, I'm going back. What's your favorite art? Who's your favorite artist?
Alphonse Mucha, hands down.
Muka,
Yeah,
hands down.
yes, he's the grandfather, the father of Art Nouveau, which is my favorite art movement. Um, I mean, yes, there are definitely fantasy artists that I love. But if you were just like, hey, capital A artist, Mucha. because Muhan was an illustrator too.
Right.
Like, if you look at a lot of his early work, it's like ads for, you know, baby formula and stuff, cigarettes.
Hey, cosplayer. If you just look at his website, it'll show you like pretty much the stuff that he enjoys drawing because he only draws what he enjoys. So if he doesn't have any anime in there, then he's probably not a big anime fan. It
Yeah,
would be
nope,
my
sure I'm
my
not.
guess.
Yeah, and you know what? There's plenty of it out there, so I don't really need to try to break into that market.
All right. So, do you have any upcoming events or shows that you want to pimp out at this time? Since we, oh, look at the whiskers just magically appeared.
Yeah, look at that.
I'll
Yeah.
look away for 1 second.
And whisker time. I told you it was whisker o'clock, man. Yeah, so I'll be at the Muggles Market, which is February 5th. And they have a Facebook presence. So if you want to look at the Muggles Market, I will be there. It's a 1 day event. I will also be at Tantrum Con.
Tantrum.
Tantrum Con is a fairly new
Gaming
board game,
con.
yeah,
Yeah.
board gaming convention, and they're in Charlotte as well. So Tantrum Con, I
Have
will
you
be.
been there?
Yeah, I did it last year.
Okay.
Yeah. It was just out of nowhere too. Like, I found it, I think, on Facebook, and I was like, "Hey, this looks cool," and I went and did it, and it was interesting. I thought that the Venn diagram of D&D players to board gamers was way deeper. It is not.
Right.
It's not.
Huh.
So, you know, I sold mostly fine art prints there, which is not what I was expecting. I was expecting to sell a lot of minis. I was expecting a lot of things. You know.
All right. Yeah. If you just go onto his website, I'm sure that he will have all the prints there for you. And I don't know if Muggles Market has a website or a
I
way
don't know
to
if they
get a
have a
hold of
website.
them.
They definitely have a Facebook presence. Um,
They do have a Facebook presence. There isn't it run by the Nefarious Ferrets? Is that am I wrong on that?
no, it's a Charlotte Geeks thing.
Oh, Charlotte
Yeah,
Geeks, yeah.
Joey and
Yeah, oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah, Joey Starnes and
yeah,
yeah,
it's it's their baby.
yeah, and they're friends of the con too. So please go give them all of your business.
Yeah, I got pretty far.
Yeah, look at that. Pretty amazing. I mean, really it was just a blank slate, really.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, other than just like the
The
basics.
flats, yeah.
Yeah. Pretty amazing. 1 hour to make CC come to life like that. Incredible. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of our show. I'd like to thank Ben for spending the time with us. I do want to make an announcement that the work that you see him drawing is going to appear on the 2023 Con Carolinas T-shirt. So I am going to pick at random from people that were in the chat a winner, and I'm going to give away one of those shirts. Now, it's not going to be something that's going to happen right away, but I will keep track and keep hold. Just like we're going to do our paranormal event still in January, so there is a good possibility that I will remember and give you a T-shirt. There's a pretty good possibility, but I don't have the randomizer up right now, so we will pick a name at random and then I will announce it on the fan page for everyone to see. Love you too, Mom. Peace out. Thanks so much. And then stay tuned for Con Carolinas throughout the years. We've got access to beautiful Con Carolina passes, or you can go right now and go to concarolinas.org and click on get your badges and get your badges. And with that, are we going anywhere with this, Sean? I mean, rating wise. Who's online? Who's on first? All right, so we are going to raid on over. So stay in the chat. We're going to raid on over to Nev. He is super hilarious and super fun to watch, and he'll be gaming 7 days tonight. Oh, it's still Christmas break for Apollo. He's still on Christmas break. Well, amazing. And thank you very much for tuning in, everybody. And yeah, peace and love. Say goodbye, Ben.
Bye. Sorry.